All right. Hello, everyone. I am Lady GLaDOS Fachan from Trimaris, Starhaven. I also go by Domina Lucretia Lepida when I'm in my Roman clothes, as you can see I'm in today, but most people know me as GLaDOS, and that is where I do my makeup, the persona name I do my makeup under. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit and also demonstrate some techniques for both braiding your hair more successfully and using period tools, and also putting your hair up in like just a simple braided bun for the purpose, and how to sew that in a Roman style of hair sewing. And that is some basic starting tools that will take you a long way towards making the period hairstyles of your dreams. I do also in the sources for on the handout include a YouTube channel for a woman named Janet Stevens, and she actually has YouTube tutorials, and those are what I learned from. So if you want to see things again, things like that, she does go through things. She groups things together differently than I'm grouping things today. And she actually will reproduce hairstyles off of sculptures and paintings and things like that. So her tutorials are really fascinating. I am going to share oh my goodness, it's been a little while since I did this. There we go. All right. So this is the handout, just so you can see. So I'm just going to go briefly through the routine, and then after that, I'm going to look at the recipes, and then I will show you the different tools. So washing your hair every 4 to 30 days. Now, I have seen everything in between, and that's the extreme limit. Like some Renaissance Italian ladies talk about every 4 days, but you see other people talk about much less frequently. Ultimately, most period hairstyles do work better with not perfectly clean hair. Like they work a little bit better on like your second or third day, just because your hair has more texture. But I'm going to talk about some ways that if you just cannot stand not washing your hair, that you can kind of get that texture without having to just not wash your hair. I actually normally wash my hair once a week, and I have done it all my life, so it doesn't bother me. But I also have really long hair, and it's really nice to not constantly have a wet head all the time. So that's another part of it. So combing your hair is really important. And I'm going to actually show you some combs. They apply powdered perfume. The powdered perfume is actually a byproduct of the way that they're making oiled perfume. Perfume in, and in Trotula, they specifically talk about putting powdered perfume in your hair, and I'll show you how they do that, just because people have a really hard time picturing what it is. Then you section your hair using gravois and bodkins. I'll show you those. We're gonna put some perfumed hair oil. I'm also going to show you how simple it is to make a very reasonable facsimile that's much more affordable and much less time and resource consuming than the actual period style, and produces a similar product. You comb your hair again, and then you use a thick needle without a sharp point. You want a dull point, because that you don't want to stab yourself in the head or someone else to stab you. I actually, other than a really simple style, I haven't yet managed to do my hair in any period styles without having a friend do my hair. And then gluing everything in place, we use some special hair glues, and I'll talk about that as well. So I have some recipes for you. This one is the Trotula, and I have redacted the language to be a little bit more user-friendly and clear, but I assure you, I went back to the Latin and checked it to make sure that everything was as accurate as possible as far as what the directions are that I'm giving you. So you can, although, use any kind of fragrant plant matter, or I mean, honestly, resins and things like that. Anything that will get into a nice dry powder. You can use anything you want as long as it smells nice. I would recommend that at least one of the things you put in there is very like bulky and maybe absorptive, like the rose petals in this, and also the watercress leaves. Both really absorb sweat and oil out of your hair. I've made another version of this and I use lavender and rosemary in it, and those kind of just soak up some of the oils. So you need that, but anything fragrant will work. As long as you're comfortable having it on your body. That's because that's where it's going to go. It's basically like a medieval 12th century dry shampoo. It's great for having at events. I'm going to say that. And then so for the hair oil, it's not conjectural. They did have essential oils, but this is just like it's a substitution. It's better than conjectural. I should change that. So it just gives you a very simple recipe. You can use any kind of oil that is safe to put on your skin or that your skin or hair likes. Everybody's body is different. So, don't do what I'm doing just because I'm doing it. Do it, make your own choices. That's totally how a historical person would have done it. And also, if you want to make it more attuned to your persona, go ahead and look through whatever oils were commonly used in cooking, because it's going to be the same kind of oils that are usually used. They'll gravitate towards the ones with the smallest amount of scent, like the least fragrant oils, because they want to not overpower the perfume. Perfume making was elaborate. It took months, and it took a lot of plant matter, and it took a lot of time, because they would essentially steep oil like with the plant matter inside it, and that would slowly take on the fragrance over time. And there's elaborate Kaja Gromek, she does amazing classes on perfume making, but they have a very elaborate process by which they would like descent the oil and then make the oil ready to receive a scent and then add a scent to it. But I do have some just quick notes here of different earlier historical perfumes and the scents that they liked. So I actually have washed my hair 2 days ago, so it's gonna be actually pretty clean and shiny. So I'll definitely give you a chance to see some of the texturizing techniques. If you're someone who's not really like into DIY stuff, that is totally okay. You can go to the store and get texturizing sprays, and you can also get dry shampoo spray. And I have a friend who does period hairstyling who is not a DIYer, and she swears by dry shampoo. So that's a completely fine. Like, part of why I provided the routine the way I did is so that you can actually like look at the routine and carry it out how you want to. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. You can do it whatever way you would like to adapt it, whatever comfort level or interest level you have. All right, so I said that I would show you some tools. So every Scadian has their one thing that they're a little like weirdly obsessed with, and mine is combs. I have a pretty big collection. I won't show you them all, honestly, because I can't ever find them all at once. But this double-sided style was the most common historically in Europe. So these are, and they're made from wood. They're also made from bone. They are, so you'll see modern ones usually with 2 different size teeth. The ones I've seen historically usually have the same size teeth, but they're not, but I don't think that's a really big deal. And it also means that you can share it with more people. I actually, being an incredibly white person, didn't realize that all of my combs were incredibly not person of color friendly, until one of my dear friends pointed that out. And so after that, I've made it a point to try to stock some combs and have some combs that have a wider like tooth spacing, so that they're more accommodating of all different kinds of hair. So this actually is a horn comb, which was really common, especially for Vikings. They loved horn combs, and it's basically like the plastic of the Middle Ages because it was anti-static. This is a peachwood comb that is carved with flowers. So it was really common to have elaborately decorated, like all of the beauty items were obviously very high status and very treasured personal items. And so it wouldn't be uncommon to have them just be made out of ivory or a very expensive wood, well taken care of. You find them patched and fixed and all kinds of things like that. Not just mirrors. We talk a lot about how precious mirrors were, but all of the tools that they used for any kind of cosmetic or hairstyling were all very, like, obviously dear, close, intensely personal possessions. And I also have, this is also horn. This is a Chinese style, but it has these adorable ducks, and ducks, especially in Chinese symbolism, are a symbol of everlasting love. So I couldn't resist. And so that's combs are a really important part of the beauty routine, because the comb actually, when you're combing your hair, scrapes out some of the oil and the other things that are stuck inside your hair. So if you've ever combed your hair and then looked at the comb and you see that like linty weird stuff that just really sticks in the comb, that's your like hair grease and all the little bits of fibers and things that are stuck in your hair that you don't see individually until they sort of like build up. And that was actually an important part of keeping their hair clean and manageable, that we sort of very much neglect or overlook. We talk about it, but we don't consider combing our hair to be part of cleaning it, but it definitely was considered to be. Very early on, they don't actually use soap in their hair. They use a very, very weak lye solution. So thank you. I'm super bad at checking the comments. So if Jahan, if you see a message there that I'm missing, feel free to shout it out at me. So the combing is an important part of it. Now, the next thing on the list is called a guavois, and it's going to sound really crazy and like something you've never seen in your life, but you have. Actually, just every time you've ever seen a decorative hairpin that was just hanging out alone, and you've thought, is that really a thing that you can just wear in your hair without anything else? Yeah, but like, it's not the greatest. I even have a lot of hair, and I can tell you it's not always the greatest. But what it does do really well is part your hair, which is the, like, when you see just hair sticks around from like the 13th century in France and they're elaborately carved ivory, people were not using them as like stick buns. That was not the purpose of those things. Those things were there so that they could part their hair evenly. Now, we're all very familiar with this, I'm sure, using like the backside or rat tail comb or pencil or knitting needle or paintbrush or whatever we have at hand. And you absolutely can do that. But if you are putting together your fancy lady like dressing station, you're going to want some very pretty gravois as well. So you can buy them everywhere you can buy hairpins. And you can absolutely buy one that you like. So I have this one. I just like, it's just a little fox spirit, and I think it's so cute. So this is just something that you use to part your hair. And I know that doesn't sound like a super important thing, but especially if you're doing some of the more elaborate late period styles or Roman styles, you will appreciate having something that you can use to very exactly part your hair. So that doesn't mean you need a fancy gravois. It just means you need a pencil or the back of a paintbrush or something like that. Don't use your finger. You can, but it works a lot better because the precision helps a lot in keeping everything straight. So similarly for bodkins, I actually have like a set of double-ended crochet needles or knitting needles, but they're currently in use making a DIY Lazy Kate. So you can also use paintbrushes. They work much better than pencils because they're smaller and they slip in your hair better. And basically what you do with those is if you've got your hair parted out into different parts and you need to put some of it up out of the way, you can twist both hands. You can twist it into basically a little bun. Put your little extra bodkins in there. and it'll hold it. I don't know if that'll, yeah, it did. Okay. So you see what I'm saying? For what I'm going to do today, it's really simple just because we all know how demoing goes. Better to keep it simple and than to overreach, right? But I like doing it something very simple to show you the skills in the process. Okay, so the last thing and kind of the most important thing is a needle. If you have a nail binding needles work great for this. I'm not a nail binder, so whenever someone gives me like a nail binding needle for largesse or something, I'm like, ooh, hair needle. But I also have this horn stylus, and it has a giant hole because it came as attached to a wax tablet, with a giant leather like strap thing, thong. So this works really well. Also, as you can see, I have a bunch of yarn attached to this. I have acrylic yarn because I fear that if I put a large amount of wool yarn in my hair, that it will never come out. And I have sat there white knuckling terrified while my partner cuts this stuff out of my hair. And it gets tangled enough. So and when you've got this much investment in your hair, you worry about things like that. So but wool is obviously a much more period fiber than acrylic. I got this just because I feel like it matches my hair, and even of color variation that matches the different like natural color variation of my hair really well. And I think that getting it to match your hair is probably the more important part of picking out which yarn you want to use. So I like to keep a pre-prepped needle in my little case of hair stuff. And the way I do that is by knotting just a simple knot on one end, so it's nice and tight. And then when I get things started, I just put the needle through like that, pull it tight to the end, and there you go. I have a nice secure hold without having to fool around with stuff while I'm in a really vital stage of sewing up my hair. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna braid half my hair to show you the braiding. No, I'll do it all. Okay, so we comb. So this is the actual recipe that I've given you, the 12th century recipe, and everyone who smells it, they say it smells like Christmas. But I enjoy it. It's nice and clovey. So what you do to get this in there, sticking your fingers in, and that makes little mini parts, and then you sprinkle the perfume into those mini parts. Now you will get like powdery stuff on your clothes, so this is a good thing to do before a nice garb. And then you kind of just massage it in to your scalp. And it smells really nice. Like it's when I go out to get ready, like I get ready for the night to go out to all the balls and everything, and I get all dolled up. It's a really nice part with all the perfumes in my hair. So if you're the sort of person who likes the little like ritual of getting ready and that sort of physical I'm a theater person, and so one of the things they taught us is to like actually think about what your character has been doing for the day, and how would my persona get ready to go out and be all dolled up and go partying with her friends. So all right, get that nice and worked in there. Might need to give another comb. I actually also find if you're trying to grow your hair out long that switching to a comb really helped me with breakage. So that might be something that is of interest or relevant if you're thinking about embracing ye old medieval comb style. I support it. All right. So then we can part our hair. Actually, perfumed oil works a lot better first. I'll do that. That way I don't have to manage a bunch of stuff. So I actually wait to make this until class so you can see how simple it is. I pour some olive oil in the container. I'm used to eyeballing it, so I don't have a teaspoon or a tablespoon here. See if I'm smarter than a child. I guess not. So I have cardamom. It's a skin safe essential oil. As long as it is skin safe, you can use it. So if you want to go out and get Chanel No. 5 in an oil base and bring it on down and put it in your hair oil, go for it. Violets were super popular in the 14th century. But like everything, there are trends. And I would suspect they mostly, like today, have to do with like the McRib comes out whenever there's so many pigs that they have to slaughter them, and that makes the price of pork drop. And so we have McRibs. And so I suspect trends were probably like that. Like someone came with a bunch of something that was in season or was a good deal for them, and they knew how to sell it. And then, oh, now there's a trend. And if you look at beauty manuals, that's definitely the case, because they'll say, oh, this soap is the best soap in the whole world. It's soap. It's all chemically the same. But this soap is the people that just started making soap. So has a nice smell. And for putting it in, I actually just like to dip my fingers in it. That might not be your style. You can dip your comb in it. You can, I don't know, you could probably use like a little spoon or a cloth. Like you could dip a cloth in there and kind of run that through your hair. I just like to get my fingers in it and then get my fingers in my hair. And I mostly try to aim at like this spot, because when I wear my hair in my Norman braids, that's the place that gets the most frizzy. When I put my hair up, I don't have a particular spot that I notice gets frizzy. I just like to have a little bit of oil all over, to help keep down on that like exploding frizz of hair. I don't know if frizz is the right name for it, but I don't know. Because my hair is very straight, but it gets that like weird thing going on. Okay. I apologize for the dogs and the child if you can hear them. Okay. I'm going to do one side of my hair in a braid, and then I'll show you the sewing part. And I'm going to do it this way because I can get to both sets of skills, because there are a lot of braid styles that are both sides of the head braids, the pigtail kind. They're not pigtails at all. I don't like calling them that, but and there are also a lot that are like up styles that are braided. So I will show you braiding 2-braid style in 1 braid, and then I'll show you sewing up all of it. So one thing that's important is to know that the orientation of how you part your hair is going to affect the way that the braid faces more than how you turn the hair when you're braiding it. So if you want perfect châtre braids, short braids. I don't know. French is not my thing. French is hard. I do Welsh, not French, in a total reversal. So if you want the braids like in the cathedral where they face forward and they're perfect, you need to part your hair like this, which is totally weird because the way we normally part our hair when we're doing like American style pigtails is we part it like this on the side. And that's why the pigtails face to the sides. So we're going for a pigtail that faces front to back. So that means we have to part it differently. And it's really wacky. It takes some getting used to, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Not too much. All right. Oof. That's the other reason it's nice to have a friend, a buddy to help you out. Especially if you have incredibly long hair like I do. Okay. So I don't actually worry that much about how straight or how even the braid is to start. I just want to get it started, even if it's super, super uneven, because I can immediately start transferring hair around. Like this one is so tiny. I can immediately steal a big bunch of hair from this other braid piece before I even bring it over here. I'm going to try to get closer so you can see. So there we go. This one is still much smaller. You can see. So when I bring it here, I'm going to steal hair off this one. This one is still really big. So I'm going to just move the hair around. Okay. Oof. I did not start that at a good angle. So it's important when you're getting it set up to start it out at exactly the angle you want it to hang in, so you don't end up with this big crazy thing here. But if you do, bobby pins are your friend or whatever kind of hairpins work best for you. Also, if you're going to wear a barbette, that's a nice, that thing can cover up those two. They're really hard. It's really hard to get the hang of getting the exact right angle there. But once you get the hair evenly distributed between the three pieces, it is not difficult to get it going. That one's feeling a little tiny, so take more over. Now what's important when you're transferring is that I do it when I put the piece of hair that feels too small to the front. And then I take a little bit of hair off the one behind it and just slide it around. Whoa, that was way too much. Slide it around there with it from the back. So it looks like you're just grabbing the hair you're supposed to. It blends in completely. All right. So this is the second kind of gross part. It's not like crocodile dung gross. It's like maybe don't wash your hair every day gross. Maybe less gross than that. So to get everything staying put at the bottom of the braid, my theory is that they use a basic, simple kind of glue to glue their hair together. And it's not glue like artist glue, or like, the fish skin glue, although they could use that. I very much doubt they would because it stinks. And this is in your hair and you're a very nice, fancy lady or man. And I just can't see it. So people have made conjectural flaxseed gel, and that is very nice. I especially like making it with rose water or some other kind of scented water. It's very luxurious then, and I definitely can see that being something that nice noble ladies would have used. But it doesn't last very long without a preservative, and I don't like to screw around with modern preservatives just because they're super expensive and I don't like dealing with handling. So they have a very limited shelf life, and it's also a lot of work to make. So I was actually like randomly looking up flaxseed gel recipes on the internet, and I saw that a lot of people were making it because they were using it as an egg white substitute. So I had this idea, and I tried using egg white as hair glue, and it actually works better than the flaxseed gel. And it's also more reliable because the flaxseed gel, being homemade, has a slightly different hold every time you use it, like, or every time you make it, every batch. And sometimes even from use to use, like if water evaporates or it gets really hot and so, well, if water starts to evaporate, it will work better. But you see my point. It has a variation. Egg whites are pretty reliable though. Egg whites are always there. So what I did is I bought a carton of egg white from the store and I froze it in ice cubes and I put them in a giant bag in my freezer. And whenever I need them, I get out a few chunks and I have them on hand for when I want to glue my hair for like a day event. Like if I'm styling my hair, going for the day and then coming home. Works really well for that.
Okay. There is a question or comment in the chat saying, couldn't folks have used a bit of twine or yarn to tie them, or was it just more common to use glue?
So they don't actually, we're talking about commonness and things like that. It's not actually a thing that is specifically ever spelled out as far as I know. There's not like a lot of hairstyling manuals. That's very much even though in various different times and everything, both men and women had styled hair, had braided hair, things like that. It was still very much like one of those arcane women's skills that were not really shared. So like many of those little domestic arts, we don't know specifically, but we can look at the pictures. I specifically reference the ladies at Shark Cathedral a lot because I just love them. I fell in love with them when I was a little girl. So they're very inspiring for me. I have seen people use thread. Thread in my hair just falls right out. It does nothing. It doesn't hold my hair even a little bit. I was actually initially very skeptical at the hair sewing suggestion, but it actually does work. And I've kept hairstyles in for multiple days with the hair sewing at the base, but using just a little bit of thread in the end, because you're braiding down to actual like single hairs at a time when you get down here to the bottom. And they do describe the diminishing braid as being very attractive. Like the way that the braid would slowly get skinnier and skinnier. That's the thing that's described poetically and is considered to be attractive. I have also seen, though, references to braids, and they are obviously finished at the bottom with some, I haven't seen a picture, but I've read a description. They're obviously finished with some kind of holder type thing because they say that the hair has a natural tassel, and that's obviously the end. But that's not what the braids look like in the cathedral, which is why I set out to figure out how they get the perfect, if you look at them, they come to a perfect point, every single one of them, and there's nothing in there showing what it is. So that's why I went to glue. So I have a big dish of egg white right here. And what I do is I dip the whole braid in it, several inches up, at least 6. And if I still have any like leftover bits, I will finish braiding them, but this looks like it's pretty solid. So if you're doing something that's a more elaborate updo, you can do your whole braid and then start moving it around into your style and sew it. And that'll give you an extra level of hold because you're basically gluing it in place. Now, I know you're thinking, whoa, that sounds really gross. Doesn't it get sticky? Doesn't it get stiff? It actually doesn't. When it dries, it's very flexible. Like occasionally you'll notice a tiny little like speck of white, like egg white albumin that is like peeling out. But I mean like occasionally. For the most part, it just looks like you have magic braids. And I've actually had like numerous people be like, how do you do that? And I actually, like when I go to war, I'll mix up a batch of flaxseed hair gel, and I'll have 2 batches, one in the cooler and one that I'm using for the first half of the week, one for the second half of the week. And I used to have a little pouch I would carry it on my belt so I could like re-glue my braids on the fly. And someone was like, it's glue, and like they caught me. So that's how that goes. Now I'm not gonna lie, for the first bit it's really floppy and wet and gross and unappealing, but it dries, it's nice and flexible just like the flaxseed gel is. It has a better hold, you don't have to make it, and it doesn't get a smell to it. I promise. I know that sounds crazy maybe, but it doesn't get a smell, and it will actually hold your braid for more than one day. If you have to get up real early in the morning, you do your braids the day before and they'll last for 2 days with egg white, reliably. It is very important when you're getting into the home stretch at the bottom here to make sure that your braid is very even, because if it's not, then the physics of the braid itself are not even, and it'll tear itself apart. But if you get it nice and even, you get a good glue and you braid it all the way down to the bitter end, you can get a really nice stable hold on the end of that braid that'll keep it in for a nice long time. Okay. So, oh, hey, it'll work good for this. On to the other main event. How much time do I have? Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, so for this one, and this is one of those things that is, the hair sewing is for sure Roman and Greek, and the taping is very similar, and that is happening in later Europe, end of period Europe, but we don't necessarily. I'm gonna need to unbraid this. Oh no. Which is not the easiest when you get it built nice and sturdy. So the hair sewing is more of an early and late, and we don't have like attestations of it so much in the middle period. We honestly don't see women's hair as much in the middle, like in the Middle Ages, the high Middle Ages, or they have that like lovely like maiden hair that's just down and flowing, or just the simple Norman braids, which is my for my GLaDOS persona, the Norman braids are my main hairstyle, my look. But with La Vida, I like to experiment and do different historical hairstyles and torture my partners by making them fix my hair. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. All right. So this is definitely one of those things that you would have, like I said, someone else help you with, because sewing your own hair, as you'll see, is not the greatest. But instead of thinking, okay, so we're going to be actually sewing with yarn, and it seems really weird. Don't think of it like sewing, though. Think about applying the thread as if it were a series of bobby pins, but you're working from the inside out. So you're still the same structural rules you know about using bobby pins or hairpins or whatever kind of, if you like those little like screw in ones, whatever kind of hair restraint you prefer. Um, the physics you have learned thus far in your life about how those things work still apply. They're just applied using a different tool. So keep that in mind. My comb is right here. And when it dries, it combs out a little easier than this too, I will also assure you. Okay. I apologize if you don't see this super well. It's super hard to keep track of everything. Okay, so I have my hair all gathered up here, like I would for a normal ponytail, right? So I have my thread, and this is why I like to have the knot pre-done, is so I don't have to mess with it while my hands are quite literally full. So I just have to pull my tail all the way tight, make sure my thumb's not involved. Get it down as tight to my head as I can. Then, okay, so I have it tied. I'm not actually like stitching through my hair yet. I'm just wrapping it around. Oh no. I felt my yarn start to get a little bit. Okay. So I'll go around a couple more times, make sure I got a good strong bit of yarn there. Okay. Oh crap. All right. So obviously your yarn breaking is not ideal. I'm going to forge ahead and try to leave a long tail, and hopefully it'll work out. Okay. So now what I'm doing is working around and stitching through the middle of the ponytail, but in different directions. So I actually just made like a cross. And then I'm going to go another time just around. And you're going to alternate back and forth between doing stitches that go through the middle of your hair and stitches that go all the way around. Ooh, which one's my tail? All right. Well, by now I can let it go a little bit. Oh no. I'll just have to pick one. And this is why, if you're sewing your hair, just like if you're sewing, always keep your emergency scissors. Okay. All right. So obviously I have a nice secure ponytail here, or secure as it's going to get considering I accidentally broke my yarn. If it wasn't a demo and I didn't have limited time, I would actually go back and start again with unbroken yarn. So now I'm going to give my hair a quick braid. And I use the same techniques here that I used with the pigtail, where to get it nice and straight so it's doesn't look weird and it doesn't hang crooked. I trade bits back and forth.
If it doesn't break your concentration, there's a question: how do you learn to braid your hair and learn to put it in buns without a mirror? Is it just practice?
Practice, necessity and practice. And obviously I do better with the mirror. And actually, so this appears to be without a mirror. I have video and I can see myself on the screen. So it's not completely without a mirror, just so you guys don't think I'm that impressive. Although I am mostly not looking up because I'm concentrating. I practice is my only suggestion on that. There's also a lot of really helpful like YouTube tutorials. Like I've been learning how to French braid my own hair. I know lots of people learn that like at home, but I did not. So I've almost all these like feminine survival skills I've kind of learned myself. There's lots of really great tutorials on YouTube. Also helpful lady friends always can come through in a pinch. So I haven't seen any specific reference to hair ties. That doesn't mean there weren't hair ties, I want to say, because there's just so much in the domestic sort of category that just isn't ever discussed. So I wouldn't say for sure that there aren't hair ties. And I actually do have a thing that I use similarly to a hair tie that I made that's sort of my own invention. Braiding your hair also at the bottom. So this is, I feel like we should start all of our SC events with like a braiding each other's hair, fixing each other's makeup, getting each other's veils on straight time. Like for the boys too, they don't know it, but they're supposed to be just as dolled up as us. So I feel like we could all do like some slumber party dress up time to kick off all of our SCA days. But I'll have to be queen of something, I guess, so I can make that a law. So when you get down here to the bottom and you can't hold it tight, what you can do is actually use your thumb and your finger to keep that tension on the braid. I do that and then I immediately let it go. But you can grab it and keep the tension on. And that is a trick that is difficult to learn. Show you what I'm talking about a little bit better. Oh, you're so uneven. Also, obviously, if you take more time and you're more careful, it can look a lot nicer.
Another question from the chat: how do you get the yarn back out without ripping out your hair?
You cut it out and it's a little scary, but especially if you have yarn that really well matches your hair. But I mean, you learn to trust the people that get it out of your hair. I have not yet actually had an accidental like hair cutting. I've been a little afraid every time, but it hasn't actually like happened that way yet. Oh no.
Is that something that you have to have someone else to do, or have you ever tried to do it yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never tried to do it myself. I wouldn't. I love my hair too much. Like I've had some where it's obvious at the front and I'll cut those. But for the most part, sometimes you can feel it out. And okay, actually that's not true. I have cut some of it out of my hair. There's always at least one part that I have to go chase down my partner and be like, baby. Okay. At this point, it's actually a lot like making a modern braid, but I'm going to bend my head forward so you can see a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm going to just build the braid, wrap the braid around, and then sew it into place. So see, I went straight through the middle, just like I would with a bobby pin. Haha. All right. And then to do the tail, I actually just there we go. I was like, where's the needle? And leave the tail hidden inside. So obviously this isn't the neatest, cutest bun, but you can see the techniques involved. And I know we're really close on time. So just really quick, this is the thing I made that is sort of like a hair tie. And also this is when I was teaching myself how to loose it. So it's not like really good loosening, but basically what I did is I made a section of loose it, and then I have little tails on both ends. I did these before I became familiar with the concept of hair sewing, but these are still useful. I do more so use them to like put over a veil and tie a veil into my hair more than I use on my actual hair, because these are wool and I fear to put the wool in my hair. But in retrospect, like I want to make some new ones that are hair matching yarn and have much longer tails and a shorter bit of lucite in the middle. But I think it's an interesting, you get a little bit of elasticity there from the luciding. So they can be used somewhat similarly to a hair tie. And I think with really long tails, you could use the elasticity as the base and then sew the ends in. And I think that would be really, I would think that would work really well. I know we don't have a lot of time, but if anybody has any quick questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. Awesome.
I guess you're done.
All right. Well, I hope, yes, I hope that everybody enjoyed the class. And I do want to let you know, I have sources on here. Oh, I guess I didn't. This is one of my few handouts where I don't list my email address. But if you look for GLaDOS Vachon on Facebook, I am like the only one. It's a really uncommon name anywhere in the world these days, in the SCA and outside. But it used to be basically like Jane in Wales, so who knows? But if you look for GLaDOS Fachan, I'm pretty much the only one. And I am happy to help you with any question, large or small, or share any victory or defeat, large or small, with you in these endeavors. And thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed.